Hello, and a warm welcome to This Woman's Work, a space where you can hear and read about some amazing women, the fantastic jobs they do, and the paths that have led them to where they are today. I'm here today with Emma. Hi, Emma.
Hi.
In your own words, could you tell the lovely listener what it is you do for a living?
Yeah, okay. So I am a clinical solution-focused hypnotherapist.
Yeah.
So I use a solution-focused brief therapy, which is the model of therapy that I practice, combined with hypnotherapy. So it's a really powerful kind of short therapy plan, if you like, than perhaps some of the more traditional options that you might have heard of, like CBT.
Right, yeah.
So I work with women with anxiety, with trauma, confidence issues, kind of fears and phobias, anything that's like preventing them from doing things they want to do in their lives or causing them anxiety or any kind of issues. And generally I work with people for between like 8 to 12 sessions.
Okay.
And they find that in that time they've been able to work out what they need to do. So it's very solution focused.
Okay.
And what that means is that we don't go back over the past and kind of analyse and pick apart what's happened. We very much focus on now and the future.
Okay. Oh, that's so almost how it's impacted making them feel now and tackling that.
Yeah, so looking at the way their thought patterns are and their behaviours are, and working out how to make those small adjustments to make those changes, which will then have a big impact on their whole lives.
Gosh, right. Okay, so how long have you been doing this for?
So I trained, I have to remember the dates when I went back and trained. So I had a corporate job for a really long time in marketing.
Okay.
And I was working in travel at the time, and then it was COVID. So obviously I lost my job, and I decided then I'm going to completely change my career, and thought I had a psychology degree.
Right.
So I graduated a very long time ago without giving my age away, with a psychology degree. And for cutting a long story short, I didn't get into it because it was really difficult to do what I wanted to do at that time. So I took a job in marketing because I have a minors in marketing as well. So,
but also, if you've done psychology, let's face it, that's really a lot of what marketing, the baseline for marketing, isn't it?
And I would say I got pushed into that route. Really, it wasn't a choice. And then, so I stuck with it because I was good at it. So I stuck with it for a really long time. And then, like I said, when COVID happened, I decided to completely go back to the beginning. I said, right, I'm going to go back to learn again. I'm going to go back to school and do something I really love. So again, I don't know how long the version of this story it can be, but I've had hypnotherapy myself.
Right.
And I really found out, I've had lots of therapy in the past, and I found it to be the most transformational. It made the biggest impact, a significant impact on my life, to the point that I would never have considered retraining to do anything new if I hadn't had hypnotherapy. So I thought, I love people, I love the brain, I love helping people. In my job, that's really, I run a department, and I really loved developing, helping people. So I was like, it just makes sense, doesn't it? So I went and qualified. I worked with CPHT, which is a recognised school in hypnotherapy, and they teach the solution-focused brief therapy, hypnotherapy, because that's what I wanted to train in, because there are other types of hypnotherapy.
Oh, okay, so you knew prior to this
I knew that was what I wanted to do.
Right.
Yeah. And it turned out that I knew the senior lecturer as well, which was lovely. So she used to be my hypnotherapist.
But you didn't know that?
Didn't know that, no, didn't know that.
Okay.
I believe in the law of attraction, by the way, as well. I'm very into that. So I feel like that was my calling. I was meant to be there. And so, I worked. So I got another job. I worked alongside it full time. Got 2 kids.
Oh my gosh. So this was pre-COVID?
This was during COVID.
Okay, so COVID happened, you decided to retrain.
Yeah, retrain.
And you retrained during COVID?
During COVID, so it started off online, then we went face to face. And I had another job at the time as well. So I was obviously just juggling all of that. And the reason why I chose the qualification I have is that it's accredited, it's recognised. So it's a real certification that's recognised at level 4,
Right.
which you don't have to have, interestingly, to be a hypnotherapist. Not many people know that, but yeah, you don't have to be qualified because there's no regulations in place.
No.
Yeah, so I've got 2 qualifications in hypnotherapy, and I'm working on my level 5 advanced qualification now, which is the same as like an undergraduate degree.
Okay.
Yeah. So it took me quite a long time to do the whole course, but the reason I picked that one as well is that you have to do lots of coursework and you have to work with so many hours of clients in that time. And by completing that course, you can become part of an association. So I'm part of 3 associations as well. So when I first started, I was seeing clients online only.
Right.
Which is all new for hypnotherapy because before COVID, the associations that I'm members of didn't allow online therapy. You weren't allowed to do it. It was only face to face.
Yeah.
So COVID actually changed the whole landscape of therapy, which is, you know, like I know there's lots of negative sides to COVID, but one of the positive sides is it's allowed hypnotherapists to now practice online, which means they can get to more people.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
And it's opened it up, as a more accessible industry.
Yeah, and I think to start with there was a little bit of concern around how it would work and also the results and the outcomes, but we've seen now that hypnotherapy online is just as effective as it is person.
Really?
Yeah. And for some people it means they can access therapy where they wouldn't have before. So I work with people who've got agoraphobia or claustrophobia or driving anxiety or, extreme social anxiety. So the thought of coming and sitting here with me would be way too much.
So if we track right back then, so Emma, school, college, were you always, so what sort of led you to kind of going into sort of psychology then as a degree? Were you always into sort of the mind even as a young whippersnapper?
They say this is like, I don't know who says this by the way, but I've read this somewhere and I believe it. If you felt like particularly misunderstood as a child growing up for whatever reason, you have a tendency to be more interested in people and how they behave and how they respond to things.
Right.
But as a child, I really struggled with school.
Yeah.
And I went through all the systems. So I went through to college. I didn't really get on very well at college. It wasn't really, like I said, I think going from quite a structured to then a really unstructured environment just didn't work for me.
Yeah.
And then I nearly didn't get into university because I messed up at college quite a bit. But I really wanted to go, so when I went to university I took sociology, marketing and psychology. I said I've always had a love for it. I've always, even in marketing like you say, I was very much into the behavioural side of it, the language. I was always into the psychology language and working out. I'm very analytical, like I said, so I did a lot of A/B testing as well in my marketing job. Yeah, to see like if you say it like this or like this, how does it work?
You loved that kind
I
of...
love that stuff.
Yeah.
I just love people. I love understanding them. And I used to be that person at work that would volunteer to ring people and ask them like research questions.
Okay.
Everybody else was like, why would you do that? But I loved it. And like I said, I love developing people. So I just knew it was what I was meant to do.
Yeah.
And I always felt like I was in the wrong job.
Right.
Because I loved what I did, but it wasn't giving me the outcomes I wanted.
Yeah, it wasn't as rich, it wasn't as...
Yeah, so I knew it wasn't what I wanted to do, but I kind of felt like, I think we started saying at the beginning, I was good at it and I felt stuck.
Yeah.
Because like life happens. So I, met my husband, we got a house, then we had kids, we got married, had kids, and every time that next milestone, I kind of felt more stuck.
Yeah.
Like, how do I leave now? How do I leave now? How do I leave now? And so, like I said, with COVID, it was like a blessing in disguise in the fact that I lost my job and was like, this is it.
So do you now treat the therapy that you had, or you've gone down a slightly different, this sort of hypnotherapy route? What I'm trying to ask is, how did you decide what courses to do, what training to do?
So, really basic, what I did was I Googled my hypnotherapist. Okay. And I looked what qualifications she had.
Yeah, fair enough.
And then I went and did it.
Yeah.
Because I said, whatever she does is what I want to do.
But that's not a bad idea with any profession, really, though, is it? I think if you come across someone that you think, or is kind of almost what you want to be, whatever that is.
Yeah, ask them.
Yeah, and just Google them. Okay.
If you can't find it, ask them, how did you do it?
And have you only done that, or have you slightly deviated?
No, absolutely stuck to it. I do exactly what we are part of the, like I said, CPHT, so it's a Clifton practice, and it was founded by somebody called David Newton a long time ago now, and it hasn't really changed. I mean, it's adapted and changed slightly with new research that's come out. But other than that, the principles are quite similar to how they always have been. It's very solution focused. It's always forward focused. We don't do regression. We don't really go back. We use some NLP techniques. I won't go into too much technical stuff. We use some CBT techniques, and
CBT for people that
that's cognitive behavioural therapy. And some of the stuff we do is human givens. We borrow bits from lots of different areas of psychology and therapy, and kind of adapt them into how we work, a solution focused approach. So mindfulness and meditation, for example, can work really well, complement hypnotherapy really well. They activate the brain in a completely different way, but they both work with your prefrontal cortex.
Touched on insurance earlier, so you have to be insured to practice, do you?
You should be insured to practice.
I was going to ask. Okay, so for anyone listening, check for insurance, because is that almost a test for people that are more legit?
Absolutely. You want someone to be insured, and for both parties, it's really important. And you ideally want them to be part of an association, because it then means that they're following certain practice guidelines. So it means that they have to comply with those guidelines, and you've got more of a support system if you need it, because you can then go to put a claim in against them with the association. And
I guess also triple check that, because someone could say they're accredited when they're not.
You would be able to find us on a register.
Yes, I was going to say that's always a good thing to do, is just not take anything at face value.
No, definitely don't. So look for them on the register, and most people will have it on their website. So I'm a bit rubbish, to be honest with you. I think I've only got 2 association badges on my website, but I am part of the CNCH. I'm very bad with acronyms. That's the complementary something of this. I can't remember what it is. But just ask people if you're not sure.
What either inherent skills do you have, or life learned skills do you have that have made you particularly good at this? And I think you've answered that in some extent anyway, in terms of your interest. But what natural characteristics do you think you have that make you good at this?
I think most of my friends and people I know would say that they always say, oh, you're really good at helping me see things differently. I don't know, I think I've always been quite good at getting people to understand how they can find a solution to a problem. That's just how I actually always have been.
If you take that back, does that then mean that you're also good at really seeing the problem?
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's very easy to see other people's problems, isn't it? And work out how to help them. And in some ways, I think, a lot of therapists maybe have spent a lot of time doing that, because maybe they struggled with their own lives in some way. It's so much easier to help support somebody else than it is to help yourself. Which is why, I know that's not what you asked me, but that's why I still have therapy, because it's really, really important. I would also say anybody who's looking for a therapist, they should look for somebody who actually has therapy and uses the therapy that they deliver.
Right. Gosh,
if you don't use your own therapy, why are you doing it? But one of the things you can't do is put your own experience on somebody else, your own expectations or beliefs on somebody else.
Right.
So whoever sits in my chair, I have to work with exactly what they bring and what they say. I can't assume anything. I can't add any colour to it. I can't make a story up about it, because I don't know. And just if I've experienced something doesn't mean I've experienced it in the same way you've experienced it. So I think I'm quite good at separating myself from other people and seeing that other people think differently to me, other people behave differently to me. other people have different perceptions and experience of life than I do. So I should never make any assumptions. So I think I'm quite good at not making assumptions. I'm also obsessed with learning and developing, like obsessed, like I always have been. I love learning about myself. I love learning like how my brain works. I love understanding how to overcome challenges. And so I think I never use anything that I haven't tested or tried on myself to some extent. So I've had rewind therapy done. You know, I've had solution focused hypnotherapy. I've used all of the tools and techniques that I offer to other people. And I find they work really well. And if I tried something and it didn't work particularly well, I wouldn't rule it out, but I'd explore why and, you know.
What challenges, and again, you've already touched on some quite honestly, you know, sort of potentially ADHD, anxiety. Are there any other kind of natural challenges that you think you have that make this challenging for you?
I have to be mindful that I can like connect too much sometimes with people and feel too much for people. So I have to have like quite strong boundaries there. And like I said, I can separate my experience from theirs, but feelings can be a bit tricky to manage. So when you know, it's very probable if you're a hypnotherapist and you have still got some issues, you can be triggered. Like really, it's extremely likely if you haven't done the work or you're not continuing to do the work on yourself. And even when you have, there's still a very high chance that someone's going to come and sit in that chair and say something that makes you go, oh my God, I feel that on every level. You know, and so it's really important you look after yourself. You can't be a good therapist if you are not taking care of yourself, if you're not getting therapy and working through anything that's still coming up for you and your issues. I personally don't think you can deal with it very well. And that's why I think a lot of people end up sometimes leaving because it can just get too much. But it's not, it's just they haven't learned how to manage it or deal with it in the right way for them. So that's the big thing. The other part of it is the people pleasing. Oh my goodness. So the boundaries I had to put in place when I set up a business. Stop giving away stuff for free. Stop discounting things all the time. Stop giving more than you can in situations and many levels again.
I was going to say, because surely people are they constantly messaging you then?
Well, they would do, potentially, if you don't have boundaries in place. And that, but the biggest part of my learning again is how can I sit here and support somebody and tell them that, you know, not tell them any boundaries, but help them create boundaries if I have none myself. You know, what kind of example does that set?
I know you have a little life in you yet. I know you have a lot of strength left. I know you have a little life in you yet.
But I did work with children for a while, and for many reasons it didn't work for me. It just wasn't right. It didn't feel aligned with what I wanted to do. And I think the more I was doing that took me out of alignment for what I wanted to create, the more I felt bad about the situation. I didn't enjoy it. So I had to decide to stop doing that. And that was like quite tough because I did love working with the children. I just found the whole process to be more than I could manage. I wasn't the right person for it. And that's what I'm saying about being open-minded. That comes with being honest about stuff and saying, this isn't for me. There are other people out there who could do a better job than I could. That's not being like negative or self-critical. That's being honest and saying, I don't love this as much as somebody else. They could do a better job here.
Brilliant.
So now I refer people to other hypnotherapists if I don't think I can work with them. And the same with a few other issues that I just don't take on. But it's trying to find like for example, I don't advertise and I don't specifically work with weight management. It's just not my thing. Don't do it.
Is that a big request, and is that a big?
It's really big, and there are many people who do it. I just don't, and there's reasons for why I don't, and that's my reasons, and that's all I need to, like, you know what I'm saying. So it's kind of like getting to that place in your life where you feel quite comfortable and confident with what you do like and what you don't like, who you do want to work with, who you don't want to work with. And the other side of it is obviously then the kind of the admin stuff.
Oh yes,
So, you know, making sure all of your notes are in the right places and you've written everything up for your associations in case, because you get audited So you get audited, and you need like a all of that. Booking systems, technology.
Yeah.
The bit I didn't account for was the back and forth with clients of them saying, I can't do that date, what else have you got?
Yeah.
You know, in my head, when I first started, it was so easy. Got a website, someone's going to go on, they're going to book, end of.
Yeah.
And I didn't realise actually, which is silly because I should have done from my background, but sometimes you naively go into things like hoping for the best.
Yeah.
And I think I'd not realised people buy from people. And your connection with somebody is often what makes them come to you. So you can't expect, particularly somebody who's very anxious, if you've got social anxiety, if this is a really big deal, which it is for a lot of people to come to therapy, you can't expect them to just go, click a button, here, I'm here. And some people do, but some people need a bit more.
They want to ask some questions.
Yeah.
They want to chat to you, don't they?
Yeah,
and get that reassurance.
So that side of things. And then finally, the last thing I'll say on the topic is I had to do a lot of work on my own confidence. So showing up on social media and doing things outside my comfort zone, like going and doing talks, workshops, guest appearances, coming on podcasts.
Yeah.
You know, all of that stuff when I first started, I'd never done before. So it's all new and all learning, and it terrified me. And every time I did it, it got a bit easier.
Yeah.
And I just had to keep going. And eventually, like I said, I just kind of approach it with, if it's going to be the right for me, I'm just going to do it. I'm not going to overthink it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Fantastic. So what's been the best part of all of this so far then?
So I was looking back on the last however many years, and it's been a whirlwind. I think the biggest part for me is that, I don't know what the word is. So I've always wanted freedom. Freedom's always been like my driving kind of value behind everything else. And so that's why I ask myself now, is this giving me freedom? And I love the fact that I am in complete control of my week.
Yeah.
Like, that's entirely my decision. Sometimes I make bad decisions and I have to take responsibility for that.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's my decision. If I want to take tomorrow off, that's up to me.
Yeah.
So that's been the hardest, but also the best bit about it. And the fact that I'm doing something, I would say, like, finally, for the first time in my life, that I can get excited and, like, I've not had the Sunday scaries once. And then the other side of it is, like I said, knowing what I'm putting out into the world and making the world a bit of a better place for me is really important. And I didn't feel that until, I mean, I did feel it in certain ways, but sending somebody on a lovely holiday is nice. Sending somebody on a holiday and they feel amazing about themselves and their lives is a whole different situation. Knowing that I'm able to help people unblock themselves and, you know, like, find what they need in there to make their lives better. Like, that's amazing to me.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the best part of what I do.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, contrast of that then. And the worst part seems incredibly negative. I'm going to have to reword this question, but I guess what are the... So I asked you what the challenging parts of you, but what are the challenging parts of this job then that make it tough?
I would be lying if I said it doesn't, you know, you don't have those moments where you just feel disappointed and sad in humanity, you know, like, it's really hard not to have that sometimes. But again, I have to do that reframing and I have to work on myself. So the hardest bit for me is not letting some of that hard stuff kind of, and it sounds really harsh when I say it, but I have to just say it how it is, not let that infiltrate into my life.
Yeah.
And, like, just having those really separate boundaries that say, like, you can care about people and be a really lovely, good person, but you don't have to take all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? It's that.
Well, yeah,
it's that
if people are
ability.
telling you quite dark stuff, that must be hard to kind of go, gosh. Yeah.
But like I said, I'm really lucky because of the approach I take. There's really only need to know basis at the consultation, or, like, if it came up in a session, we're not going over these things and dwelling about them, and I don't ask people any information about it. So it does. And that's why I chose this way of working for myself as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Wow. Am I allowed to ask, what's the strangest thing that's happened to you doing this? Strangest experience or strangest thing that you've heard? Or, I mean, obviously without naming any names, but...
I'm just trying to think. I mean, we do get some odd requests sometimes, I guess. And some odd phobias, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think. Somebody told me something the other day and I was like, I've never heard that one before. I haven't really had anything
particularly strange
myself. It's more things I've heard from other people. But yeah, I mean, you do get the odd few people, and they're always men, I'm sorry, but they are, who will ask me weird questions. Like, I think the weirdest thing someone's asked me before was, how deep a trance can you put me in? I think they wanted me to like...
Oh dear, almost like do drugs, like a drug.
And I was like, no, that's not what I do.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, I don't have anything too odd.
What about, do you treat any form of sort of like sexual problems? Do you go down that? Sorry to ask, but I can feel like people might feel...
Yeah, we do. And to be honest with you, that's what I mean. It's not. It's really not unusual. It's not uncommon, to be honest, for that to come up as well.
And do you get couples coming in, or is it just individuals?
I don't do couple therapy, so I will work with couples individually.
Yeah.
But I don't work with couples together. So yeah, I mean, sometimes people will tell me stuff that's like really, you know, and
unusual, and you've got to.
Yeah. But like I said, I approach everything in a completely non-judgmental way.
Yeah.
And like, it is what it is. Whatever information you tell me in a session, it is what it is. I don't delve into it. I don't need to know about it. You know. But yeah, sometimes there will be things that come up and you think, oh, that's interesting. My most requested, not weird, but my most requested is, can you make me stop eating chocolate? Or can you make me stop eating crisps? And that's not what I do.
Does the same thing apply for addiction? Do you treat addiction?
You
do or you don't do addiction?
I do a treat. I can't say that. I do treat addiction, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And again, we can work with everything as long as the person has the motivation and the desire.
Yeah.
Nothing's impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. We don't. The approach we take is very much. If you want to make a change here, then we can support you do it. Yeah. The only things that come up, which are, you know, sometimes we need to speak to GPs about, but that's more mental health conditions which might have an adverse effect if they're not managed properly. So I wouldn't work with somebody if I had any concerns that hypnotherapy might create an adverse reaction. And likewise, any contraindications from like trauma, things like that.
Yeah.
So if somebody came to me and said, this really traumatic thing happened, can you like fix it, make it go away? I want to do it now. Yeah. I would say no. I know there are other people out there who might work with them, but I wouldn't personally, because I would say we need to like spend more time trying to
figure out,
like get you into a place where you're like emotionally and mentally prepared and ready for like dealing with that stuff. Because it can be really like, you know, I like
really PTSD, that kind of stuff.
A lot of people do work with PTSD and aren't very trauma informed.
Right.
And that really worries me because you know, you can have contraindications from working, particularly around regression work or like things like that, if you're not aware of that person's emotional state right now and whether they can process it, because the brain isn't always able to process things like that. So it's just recognising the right point in the therapy treatment that you would deal with it.
Yeah.
And so I'm always very honest with people.
So it's quite clear that money and, you know, I can say that word, remuneration isn't why you're doing this.
No.
However, if someone is considering and would love this kind of career, I guess it's to give them an idea. Obviously, you've had to pay out a lot for training and to get qualified and insurance.
Yeah.
Would you say you do earn a good living from this?
You absolutely can earn a good living from it. I would say be mindful. I had to have another job whilst I did my training, and I had to have another job whilst I first started out in practice. For a year, I still worked for a good year alongside it, because it does take time to get clients, you know.
Yes.
And I would say it all depends on what you put into it and what you want to get out of it. I know people who do 40 clinic hours a week.
Wow.
Which is a lot. For me, that's too much. I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
But again, one of the biggest traps I fell into when I graduated was looking at other people. Oh, well, how has she got 40 clinic hours a week and I've only got, at the time, 7?
Yeah.
And I think it's about realising that that person might have been in business for 7 years already.
Yeah.
And they haven't got the same life as you. So my husband's a firefighter, so he works shifts. I've got 2 little kids. We've got homework, we've got after school clubs, we've got football at the weekend.
Yeah.
You can't, you have to create, the whole thing, if you're doing this for freedom, is to create the business around your life rather than create your life around the business.
Yeah.
And I create my business around my life, so I have to try and make that work. And if that means for now I have to cap how many clients I have, then that's fine. But it's just about being aware of that.
And surely you can also, like you say, in time, do you get paid for maybe going on these courses and these workshops and stuff? So other than actual clinical hours, you can get paid for, the other stuff.
So I make I make some money from talking.
Yeah.
So like public talking, but again, it depends if you want to do that.
And that comes more, I guess, as more experience and more qualified, whatever you are. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I make money from group work that I do as well. So whether that's an organisation or a charity will pay me to run groups for them, but I also run my own groups as well. So there's lots of opportunities. You can I could decide if I wanted to create a CPD course and deliver that, and that would make me money. I could become a supervisor. I could become a business mentor. I could become a lecturer. There's so many opportunities for the future, in my future, not my immediate, because I'm still doing what I'm doing. I'm happy, but there's so many opportunities in hypnotherapy.
Well, my next question was going to be, what's next for you? And you sort of just said then, didn't you? Kind of went, oh, well, in the future, but right now I'm quite happy. But what's next then? As in, like, let's say you in 5 years.
Okay, so me in 5 years, I think I will have created and be running a CPD course for 100%. I love teaching. And I probably am going to be a business mentor. I wouldn't say probably, I will be a business mentor for the hypnotherapist as well.
Okay.
So they're the 2 things I really want to do.
Okay, my 2 final questions.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to your younger self? So could be Emma in school, college, uni.
I would say to myself at uni, have more fun. And I don't mean that in like a go out and have more fun, because I have plenty of that. I mean, like, don't take life so seriously.
Right.
Like, don't worry so much about, because back then I really worried and I felt really...
So this was the social anxiety that you made?
Social anxiety and just about everything in life, like, what's my life going to turn out like, and being, and that feeling of being stuck for such a long time. I think I'd tell myself it's all worked out perfectly, but I think if I had any advice, it would be, don't worry so much about like the future.
Yeah.
Just enjoy what you're doing now. Like, focus on you now and have a good time. Love what you're doing now.
Yeah.
And the rest of it will come.
Trust the journey.
Yeah. But I think I used to be so fixated on what's going to happen, and I didn't really enjoy what I was doing.
Yeah.
So that would be it, yeah.
Okay. And then the final question, what bit of life advice would you throw out there as you now into the world to anyone that's listening?
So my best advice right now is, whatever is stopping you from doing something, it's very likely it's not actually what you think it is.
Oh, okay.
So most of the time we don't do things, it's because we're not sure how to do it.
Right.
And we don't take that.
So what's that? Is that fear of the unknown then? Or?
Yeah, I think so. And it's kind of, there's 2 sides to it. The way I see it is, we either plan so far ahead we overwhelm ourselves and think, how am I going to do this? or we become so blocked we can't even see the next step in the journey, so we just stop ourselves instantly. So I would say, like, it's yes, it might be confidence, it might be this, it might be that, skills, ability, but it's really not any of those things. It's just you haven't worked out how you're going to do the next step yet.
Yeah.
So my advice is take the first step. Like, just come up with one idea that you can do tomorrow that's easy. Take the first step and see what happens, because you will learn as soon as you've done that.
Yeah.
You'll learn everything you need to know to make the next step as soon as you've taken the first one.
And this could be for anything: work,
anything,
love, relationship.
Anything. Like you were saying about your podcast, you know.
Yeah.
6-7 months ago, you wouldn't have had a clue maybe what you were doing.
No.
And until you've done that first thing that's like, what do I need? And you start doing it, then you go, oh, now I know I need to know this. Now I know I need to know this. Now I know I need to know this.
Exactly.
But if you spent all your time trying to work out everything you needed to know before you started doing it, it wouldn't serve you any benefit, because that's like 3 steps ahead.
It's overload, isn't it? It was for me very much.
And what I will always say as well is everything can change. Like, what you predict could happen might never happen. Something completely unpredictable could come in and change. So you can never be fully prepared for that. So you have to take the first step and see what happens. And just know, like, after you've done that, you're going to have enough information to make the next step.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Emma.
Oh, you're welcome. It was really nice to meet you and chat and, you know, talk about all this stuff to help the people, hopefully.
Oh, I hope so. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
If you would like to hear more about this chat, see some behind the scenes pics and some personal profile pics, plus read about how to get started in this industry and or this role, then please go and support us on Patreon. The link is on this podcast page and across all of our socials. Sincere thanks in advance.